I've seen one of them's gonna graduate. Hopefully, one other left hitter.
All right, everybody.
But yeah, to see it up there, I think it just.
Let's go ahead and get going.
They're from Arizona, and they're both like freckles, like Auburn, and they both like live in Canada, black, not just snot. I know. They made a couple friends for sure. I think at least Frozen had a couple. She's somewhere in Japan, Asheville. I don't think Asheville can. He just kept to himself and trying to look as threatening as possible. Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Yeah, I'm scared.
Happy Sunday. Happy May 5th. Everybody, Cinco de Mayo. We're having tacos in a second. Happy Star Wars or late Star Wars Day. Everybody celebrated. What? Derby Day. I forgot about Derby Day. I did get a text about Derby Day from Uncle Todd. Yeah, Todd texted about in a random group chat talking about Derby. So that's the only reason I knew about it. All right, this is what we're gonna do. I want to read a very short paragraph from the man himself, from Thomas Merton. So use the time however you want, and then I'll play a song for us, and then we'll name the good. So let's enter into the space. The only true joy on earth is to escape from the prison of our own false self and enter by love into union with the life who dwells and sings within the essence of every creature and in the core of our own souls. In his love, we possess all things and enjoy fruition of them, finding him in them all. And thus, as we go about in the world, everything we meet and everything we see and hear and touch, far from defiling, purifies us and plants in us something more of heaven. Beautiful. Let me pray. God, we're here. We come just as we are, not as we should be, because none of us is as we should be. I pray that whatever we're carrying, whatever we're pondering, whatever it is in our life, the good, the bad, the celebrations, or the things that feels weighty, God, I pray we just bring it in. We sit it at the feet of Jesus, and I ask that we hear, we see, we feel the soft and the tender presence of Jesus. As we talk today, pray that we practice wisdom. We hear the Spirit speaking to us, and I pray that you move us and help us along the journey. I pray in your name. Amen. We'll play a song for you guys. It's the live version of the song, so he sounds live. So it's not all together, but I think it's beautiful. So I'm going to play a song for us, and then we'll name it good.
Joy to know it's when you fill up my soul. What a joy to see. Joy to hold it's when you come. I want nothing more. Open my hand, humble my heart. All that I have is yours. Color my prayer, widen my eye. Wash me in glorious light. Oh, the joy to be, joy to know it's when I come. Fill up my soul, what a joy to see. Joy to hold it when you. I want nothing more. Hey guys. Taste in my ears, right on my tongue. Focus my heart to hear. Settle my pace, purge me of pride. Again and again you provide. Oh, the joy to know it's when I fill up my soul. What a joy to see. Joy to hold it's when you. I want nothing more. Oh, the joy to know it's when you fill up my soul. What a joy to see. Joy to hold it's when you increase. I want nothing more.
There you go. All right, everybody. We can name the good, the true, the beautiful that you've encountered, you've seen, you've tasted, you want to share, or for you want to fill in the blank. Name the whatever it is right now. Feel free to do so too. So.
Judah turned 9 yesterday. He's our Star Wars baby. And it was a lot. It was just a fun day. And he's super hype about his birthday. And I don't know where he gets that. But yeah, it was just fun to just watch him grow. And I made a little post about him on Instagram and was just like thinking about him and looking at old pictures. And there were some really challenging years with Judah for a little bit. Because I don't know how much you all know him, and you get little tiny glimpses of him, but he feels things pretty big. He's our big little feeler. And for a while, especially once we moved here, that transition was really tough for him, and he was like scary. Just ragey all the time, just always mad, always angry, and a little violent. And it was really hard and scary. And I'm like, what do we do with this kid? And I'm a big feeler, but mine does not come out as ragey. And so I was like, I don't know what to do. And it was just really hard for a few years of feeling like, and being terrified. I was like, I do not want to raise a violent man and a bully. And so just really trying to work with him and be there for him, and to see him now. I mean, he has his little moments of, we call it his rage monster that comes out. But to see him now and just be a sweet boy that's like more loyal and protective than he is aggressive is really sweet. And so just really thankful for him and the work that God's done in his heart, and the work that the patience that he's given Corey and I to get through the hard years, and just to get to enjoy him and be proud of him and see where he goes. So he's a sweet little boy.
Destined for greatness to be born on Star Wars Day.
I know. Thankful for Judah. So May the 4th.
That's cool.
as you guys know, our son is in that cringy period where we're struggling. So it's been really hard when you send him the good. Like, I feel like we're definitely not good yet. And Drew's back in the mental facility, as many people know, and we don't know when insurance will cut him again. And so some days it feels like normal in our house, but there's always this emptiness because he's not there. But the good is that God is not changed, and he has a plan that we can't see. And that Drew's alive, and we're alive, and whatever the outcome is, like, God's not afraid of it, and we don't have to be either. It's just some days it feels like there's no good, and then some days I wake up and I'm like, it's a good day, and then I remember he's not there, and then I feel bad. But we've had a lot of quiet time between the three of us, and we went to the beach trip, which we're super thankful for. We didn't know if we'd be able to go this year, and we don't know if Drew will be with us or not, but I'm thankful he has a place to go, and we just can't see the next 5 feet in front of us, but God is good.
Thanks for that. Part of naming the good is what you're doing, of being able to say, like, the seed that goes into the ground to die, so something can be born. It's like, is the whole process easy and sexy and fun? And it's like, no, but it's like, I'm trusting, like, that's what faith means. Like, in the first, like, early texts of Greek and with the scriptures, the Greek word for faith is pistis, and it doesn't mean cognitive belief. It means commitment and trust. It's like, I'm committed to holding on to hope. And like, that's the good. It's like, there's nothing about this that's good, but I'm holding on to hope. And it's like, that's just as included and worthwhile as naming the good. You know, it's like, you don't have the good, but I'm holding on to the hope of it. So, but we're with you guys. And I know it's a lot.
Jenny and I got really awful with our foster son. And the good day was, well, it started out as a pretty bad day. Like, I don't generally struggle with anxiety, but I've had quite a bit this week. And Jenny has heart arrhythmias that resurged this week, even though she's been good for a long time from the stress. So it's just been really hard. And we've had been almost 2 years, so this whole thing was pretty out of left field for him. And like, I think it was a bunch of anger about his parents coming out in an argument with his sister, because his sister wants to treat their parents with some kind of respect and kindness, knowing that her mom's mentally sick is how she approaches it, but he just wants nothing to do with them. So he sits silent on their visitation calls, and so they had a huge argument about handling it, and Azrael told her she was pretty much disgusting for even talking to them, and so it was this huge thing. Jenny had to get involved. He got mad at her. I wasn't even in the house, and I'm getting treated the same way this week, so it's just been really hard. Like, I've never seen him like so hateful. So that's been really difficult, and he already isn't sentimental or caring, which is probably partly his upbringing, and he's autistic and just has a different way of handling, or no, he doesn't have any way of handling his emotions, I think, is the big problem. So they've never come out before. And Thursday was really hard, and I woke up feeling pretty sick from everything. And then I had counseling that morning, which was good timing. And then I was still a mess, and I was like crying every so often when I was headed to work.
And I texted the next day, Friday. The caseworker was supposed to come and talk to him. And we weren't sure how it would go. So I was like, I really need to be home for this. So I texted our admin at my work, where I'm a piano teacher. And we've gotten really strict about people asking off lately, but I was like, this is really important. So I messaged her and I was like, hey, this is what's gone down this week. And like, I just want to be there. I don't want to leave Jenny alone to like be there for this meeting that could go really badly. And I wasn't sure what she'd say. And like, when I got to work, I was thinking if she got she's kind of big and loud and doesn't care to say things. So I was like, didn't know if she'd be understanding or if she'd kind of be like, you know, this is going to be kind of tough. Like, you're asking for tomorrow, so I don't have a lot of time. And I just thought if she reacted like that, I'd start crying. So I walked in and she was like, Becca, you'll be glad to know I have like everything taken care of except one thing. Like, she didn't even think twice about it and just really was, she was a good listening ear. And then, so it was like, there was counseling, there was that, how she handled that. And then right after that, I was like a mess. I'd still been crying. I was supposed to go play for a student and I texted the teacher and was like, hey, I'm still a mess right now. She's like, it's fine, don't worry about it. And I go to teach my first student. My first student on Thursdays is a foster mom we're already friends with. So like, it was a perfect kind of setup because I would have had to like ask somebody else to go get my lesson started. But instead I just went and talked to her for a while. She didn't mind to not play, but just start by, she always does. We always talk for like 10 minutes about fostering and how everything is. So it was just really good timing on a really hard day, like multiple things just. I think it was the same day too that another coworker got me a giant smoothie and was like, I'm sorry you're having a hard day. There's something in the fridge for you. So yeah, just like a lot of good blessings on a day that was pretty hard. And I'm crying a lot extra. So I didn't want to talk, but I'm sick of crying. Yeah, I'm like my dad, and then this week's been even worse. So, but that was a good day in the middle of everything.
Thanks for sharing. What else?
I'll just tack on the what Becca said. It's obviously been really hard, and in little ways, I've seen God move multiple times this week in just weird things. Like, I have to pick him up from work every day. Well, every day it has to go to work anyway. And Ezra gets off at like 9:30 usually, and he knows to send us a message if he's going to be late. Sometimes it's like after 10. And I was really frustrated because it was 10:15 and he was still in there, hadn't heard anything, he's sitting in the parking lot for an hour. And just because he's not speaking to us, he just decides to not tell me. So I had asked him multiple times when he finally got in the car to take his headphones off just so I could talk to him, and he just refused. And I got this weird feeling on the way home, for no reason, that he was going to slam the door in my face when we got there. Like, I don't know why it happened, but I really feel like God was just telling me, like, you need to prepare yourself for this so you react well. And he did it. And didn't slam it, but he shut it in my face. And I was able to react pretty well because I've been thinking about it for the past 10 minutes on the way home. And I was just like, thank you, because I would not have reacted well not knowing that. And I have no idea why I knew. So I'm just seeing God in cool ways and cool timing, even though it's really bad situations.
Yeah. Someone's singing.
Could be anybody.
Well, it may come up here and sing for us next
Just need
week.
to figure out which Taylor Swift song it is.
Nice. I had Taylor Swift going earlier. Anything else? All right. You guys ready to keep going? All right, let's do it. If you got a Bible, go to 1 John chapter 2. We'll read a couple verses real quick, and then we'll get in what we're doing. 1 John 2, look at verse 12. I'm writing to you who are God's children, because your sins have been forgiven through Jesus. I'm writing to you who are mature in the faith, because you know Christ, who existed from the beginning. I'm writing to you who are young in the faith, because you've won your battle with the evil one. I've written to you who are God's children, because you know the Father. I've written to you who are mature in the faith, because you know Christ, who existed from the beginning. I've written to you who are young in the faith, because you are strong. God's word lives in your hearts, and you have won your battle with the evil one. We'll talk about the evil one another day, but won the battle with the evil one. There's a multiple perspective there, writing to everybody. No matter where you are on the stage, you're welcome at the table. There's a pattern. There's stages there, what it means to be on the journey of faith. So last week, I kind of tossed you guys overboard with the whole stages of faith and just gave you guys everything. And this week, I thought it'd be better to zoom out a little bit and just try to get personable, practical with some stuff. Try to talk about, does this stuff matter? And how does it matter? What's it mean for me as an individual? What could it mean for us as a community? Because whenever I'm pondering, what does it mean for Mosaic to be a community? How are we, even ask the question may not be helpful, but how are we different than other communities? What are we trying to prioritize? All that stuff kind of builds up for me into these kind of stages of faith. And so I'm hoping that it's a gift to you, because it's been a gift to me. So today we're hoping just to get a little bit more down to earth and practical. So I messaged in the group me this morning. If you guys have any thoughts or questions or comments or whatever from last week or however we're talking about today, feel free to voice those. So today I asked Emily to kind of host like a facilitation of sorts for the conversation of the stages of faith. And so at any moment that you want to ask a question or ponder for the community, for the table or whatever, feel free to do so. And we're just going to explore it and see what we can mine some of the depths of it. And I have some preset stuff that I can share too if we need to go there, or with questions, however you guys want to do it. But that's the plan. Sound good? Cool. I'm going to do a very short recap of the stages real quick, and then we can just get into stuff. And I'll just let Emily do stuff after that with us. Does that sound good? Okay. So you guys remember the 4 stages. Remember, don't think of them as a ladder. You're getting better and better every day. Stage 4 is the best. Stage 3 kind of sucks. Think about it's a evolution. It's a circle. You go through all the stages. Stage number 1 is simplicity. It's where everything is clear cut, black and white, us and them. It's known as the dualistic stage. It's very, very necessary for growth. You have to have some sense of a dualistic start with these things. And it's helpful. Like, you can understand why we need clear boundaries of what's good and what's evil, what's going to bring benefit and what's going to bring calamity. We need those things. Moving on from stage 1 is stage 2. That's called complexity. It's where things start to get a little bit bigger. You start to doubt some of your answers, and you start to need some more perspective. You start to broaden your horizon a little bit. So complexity is where things get a little bit more complex. It's a little bit more gray. There's options on the table. But when complexity comes, it's more of this question of what's the best way to give myself. Simplicity is about what's the right way. Stage 2 is about what's the best way. When you think about church, stage 1 is we're the most correct church. We're the right church. Stage 2 is we're the best church. We have the best programs or teachers or Sunday school, whatever. We have the best whatever. That's the mindset of stage 2. For most communities, most people stop in stage 1 and stage 2. We don't really have any other category place for us to go after that. But it keeps going. Stage 3 is called perplexity. It's where you get a little bit more questions than answers. The first 2 stages, you have a little bit more answers. Stage 3 happens, you have a little bit more questions. And sometimes that tips you a little bit overboard. You have a little bit more criticisms for things. You see things as a little bit more absurd. You have a lot more judgment on things, perhaps. See a little bit more holes in everything. You're critical. You're thinking critically. You care deeply about justice and things being authentic and honest. And you see where things are not authentic and people are being dishonest. Care a little bit more about those things. That's perplexity. Just as included as stage 1 and 2. Just as included. We can talk about why if you guys want. And there's some through lines there. But it's just as included, stage 1 and 2. Stage 4 is called harmony. It's not necessarily that you get more answers to your previously held questions in stage 3. You may. But stage 4 cares more about the end goal of things. Where are we going? Why does it matter? Love being the end point. Who am I in the world? So you can still accomplish goals and have success in your life of pursuing something good in the world. Carrying with it questions and concerns and criticisms and the whole thing. That eventually becomes your new black and white. That eventually becomes a new simplicity of how you see the world. And it's one big circle. And I think the issue is that churches don't honor the full spectrum of stages of faith. And so that's why I'm trying to talk about it. Is when I think about what Mosaic is, it's in a 4-stage mindset, trying to honor the stages and all that stuff. And we talk about all those things if you guys want to. So Emily, however you want to do this.
If no one has an immediate does anyone have an immediate question to kick us off? So we'll do this. We're happy to open up. If you all have something from last week that's like sitting with you, or non-question. Otherwise, I have questions, and like Blake said, these questions are really meant to just like facilitate more information rather than him again just talking for 30 minutes. So at any time, if I ask him a question and his response triggers a question for you, feel free to just ask him from that response. Does that make sense? So this is really loose and casual, and we want you guys to jump in as you want to. So does anyone have a question to kick us off? It's okay if you don't. I have tons of questions, but go ahead.
This seems so like I didn't need to be convinced this made sense, because when I first heard it, I was like, I've literally lived it.
Yeah. Yep.
If it's so common to like what humans go through, even developmentally, why are so many people in the first 2 and no further?
It's a great question.
Amazing.
Because that's like what has kind of pushed me and Jenny out of our church before, and we still have relationships there. We're not trying to burn a bridge at all. But like that's literally what there's no room for. Like it's very obvious from the response of the elders to our questions.
Sure.
It's like there's not room for uncertainty in certain issues, and their reasoning is because it's so obvious.
Sure. It's a great question.
Which I guess means we haven't gone down to the level of like, well, how we're reading the Bible is pretty different.
Sure.
I guess that would be the next conversation if we wanted to have it. But it's like, why are there people not getting it?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question.
Us that go through the other 2 stages.
Yeah, it's great. One main thought, and then we can keep exploring if you guys want. It's kind of what I just said earlier about faith, to be honest. Earliest accounts of the Greek word for faith is the word pistis, okay? And if you do the deep dive, if you want to, it's pretty cool. But if you want to do the deep dive, it does not primarily mean cognitive structures in your brain. That's the earliest accounts. Even in like the 16th century when the KJV was booming, when they translate for believe, it's not necessarily a bad translation. I'm not saying the Bible doesn't talk about beliefs, but when the Gospels specifically, or the New Testament, whatever, talks about the word belief, it does not primarily mean cognitive structures in your brain. However, in the last 400 years or so, that's what it's come to mean. So we talk about having faith or being a Christian or the faith of a Christian. What that means is you believe these 10 things in your mind. You have 10 check boxes in your head that you check off. Now that's our culture. That's why you live and breathe and all that stuff. So if that's the case, most churches are built upon 10 doctrinal structures or belief systems, And so that is faith. Okay, so stage 1 says these are right and everything else is wrong. We believe this about hell, this about creation, this about inerrancy, this about end times, this about XYZ. And any other perspective is wrong. Now, there are some churches that venture into stage 2, which is complexity, where we'll say, here's a study group where you can come to conclusions on your own. There are some churches that are pretty good at exploring like other options on the table, and they're pretty good at that. There's some churches that are non-denominational, but they practice Lectio Divina, which is Catholic. Okay, they're starting to broaden some horizons there. But again, if the through line for faith is that we believe these 10 things and not those 10 things, these are the best 10 things to believe, which is stage 2, then any deviation from that, you're out. Like you're off the course. And so it's really built into our DNA of saying, okay, if you're questioning the 10, you don't believe the 10, you don't affirm the 10 anymore, then you're not, maybe you weren't a Christian to begin with, you're a heretic now, you're backslidden, or you're progressive or something like that. So we really have no space for that.
And I think it's because the leaders feel like they do all the work for you, and then they tell you
Sure.
the work that they did because of their conclusion.
Yeah.
But like that doesn't help somebody take the journey themselves.
That's right.
So like that's how we feel, is like we're not allowed to take the journey to whatever conclusion because there's only one right answer, and so they just short circuit it, tell you what
Sure.
you should think.
Yep.
So it's like maybe them feeling pressure as pastors to like, which shouldn't be, of like finding the answers for us.
Yep.
If they think it's obvious, you should think it's obvious.
Yeah, both are kind of, stage 1 and stage 2 are still built upon authority, being authority driven. So like we have the answers and everybody needs to come to us for the answers. But also too, it's like you can come to your answers, stage 2, as long as they're the answers that I have. And so I have a cynical response too. It's like, well, it's a way to keep the power in our hands. It's like growth is stage 1 and stage 2. Growth means memorization. Like that's what stage 1 and stage 2 growth is. As long as you memorize our points and X, Y, Z, because then it keeps us coming back. You know, churches have the tendency to keep in circulation, to prioritize or whatever the issues that keep you coming back. So if the issue is you need to know more of what I think, or just memorize it more of what I think, then you're gonna keep coming. And stage 3 and stage 4, you start to get out of my hands, you know. And
But part of the problem is they don't point to what they think. They say it's what the Bible says.
sure.
Which I think is a step in the right direction of like, it's not like people are just, I want to be intelligent and tell you what to think.
Sure.
But it's so obvious to them that this is what the Bible says that then it's like almost like the appeal to like this authority you can't argue with, and then it just becomes a standstill. Like Denny tried to say, well, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree. And the elder's like, this isn't an agree to disagree issue.
Sure.
And so what does that mean? Like, does that mean I can't stay here? Like,
That's right.
that was a really poor way to put it.
Sure.
Like, so I can't think what I think is what you're saying.
Yep.
Like, but they point to the Bible, not themselves. Like, I wouldn't say that these are power hungry
Sure.
or
Mm-hmm.
not like
Yeah.
super prideful people. It's just
Yeah, that's my unhealthy. That's my perplexity bin.
Yes.
Like these guys.
Yeah.
Well, there's those things.
That's my stage 3
Yeah.
speaking.
Yeah, I think it's helpful to keep the good assumptions and the good intentions in mind of stage 1, stage 2, because we all started out there. We all find our way back there from time to time. I think the right versus wrong, good guys, bad guys, like most of that doesn't come from a wholly like evil place.
Sure.
Like a place that's meant purposefully to put you all down. They are like the church leaders that you mentioned. Like I would venture to guess that a lot of it, I mean, there's always room for narcissism and stuff like that, but they're trying to protect the institution, that the structure that you're saying that the whole thing in their mind is built on. And so questions become the poison to that structure. And so it's a kind of a slippery slope of, well, if you're going to question this, then the whole thing's open. Well, then you can question this, and you can question this, and you can question this, and then sooner or later we don't believe anything. We're just going around doing it like that's how it goes. And so again, it's not it's not necessarily an answer to the problem, but it is helpful to kind of know the other side's thinking. And I wish it was the other way around. I wish they were caring enough about me to know what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
They're like, well,
Yeah.
see Andy's side. But it is helpful to kind of put yourself back with, because we've all been there at points where it's like, okay, yeah, I've been stage one most times in my life. It's helpful at least to know where they're coming from. And it softens the blow a little bit when they do come down on you and say, well, you're out. You're like, well, of course I am. But that's wise, because they are trying to, in many ways, they are trying to protect the structure. And in their mind, questions are a poison pill of that. So.
That's good.
Some things will probably come back around to more talk about this in the essence of like making room for other stages. But to just give something really practical, why is, because all of this sounds good. And I think like Rebecca said, we can all resonate with like, oh yeah, that sounds familiar in the way, or I have found myself in any one of these places. But other than past that of like, great, I see myself in stage 3, or I see myself in stage 2 or 1 or 4. What is the purpose? Like, why is this important? How does this affect, or could it affect our day to day? And be beneficial for us past? I can look back and maybe see myself having been in those stages.
Two things. One, seeing where you are in the process, I think is helpful in the sense of when you know where you are, you can shoot your trajectory. I'm somewhere in this zone. Also, it's the idea that if this is where I'm at, then these are the things that I need right now. And if you're in perplexity, for instance, you're asking lots of questions, you're kind of rage against the machine, you can kind of identify some of that in you. One, you can say, okay, this is okay. I'm not venturing too far off the path. Like, this is a normal part of the process for me. If you try to start putting yourself back in simplicity again, it's not going to be healthy for you. Okay, I'm in stage 3. So what's after stage 3? It's stage 4. So you start knowing what's on the horizon, what's coming ahead of me. And you can say, okay, what's stage 4 about? Stage 4 is not just getting answers to the questions, which is often what stage 3 wants. It's just, if I could just have all these pieces figured out again, then I could move on. Or you give 2 middle fingers to everything. I don't know. Stage 4 is about, okay, I'm going to keep that, and I'm going to doubt my criticisms because I'm not the final say on authority still. Like, I still can't hold all truth. So even my criticisms and even my doubts I need to be critical of them and doubt them. Like, materialism is not the end game. Like, I can keep studying and keep going. So what's stage 4? Stage 4 is I'm going to carry all that with me, and I can still XYZ. I can still make the world a better place. This is where lots of people get stuck, just to keep on perplexity, is we have so many questions and so many criticisms that we often just leave or tap out and give up, which is understandable, which is lots of times where I'm there as well. But I know that that's not the end goal. Like, me just tapping out is not the end goal. Like, it keeps going. That's what's next for me. Maybe it's me to roll up my sleeves a little bit and get my hands dirty. Like, I can actually make the world a better place. I can serve people still with my criticisms of XYZ. And I can start doubting my judgments. I can start doubting my conclusions. I'm doubting my criticisms. And so for me, the personal or the practical day-to-day aspect is, one, I can identify where I'm at, which is often all 4 sometimes, to be honest. You can probably identify all 4 in yourself at any given moment. There's lots of places where I'm black and white still. I'll still very adamantly say this is right and this is wrong. And we need to do that. There's lots of things right now that I have 15 tabs open on my iPhone that I'm studying. I'm trying to figure out. And I'm trying to explore the options. I'm trying to have some generosity towards other perspectives. There's lots of me that's raging against the machine, that has a lot of criticisms and complaints and stuff. And I'll post stuff all the time. And people message me and be like, are you raging against the machine again? I'm like, yeah, probably. It's like natural in me. And then there's part of me that wants to keep longing for wholeness. And it's like, is critical thinking, me being critical all the time is what I mean by that. Is me being critical all the time the best way to be human? Probably not. It's like if you're around me all the time and all I am is just bitching about stuff, like, is that a fun way to live my life? No. It's like, is there more? So I can honor where I'm at. It's okay. But also I kind of know the next steps for me. If you're in complexity, what do you need? Or if you're in complexity, what do you need? Maybe you need to start venturing a little bit further and start asking more questions. Maybe you need to get a little bit better at poking some holes and stuff and thinking more critically and standing up for justice and social justice. Maybe in complexity, you're not standing up for enough because you have all the perspectives on the table. You need to stand up for something, and there's beauty to that. If you're in simplicity, you can ask the questions of where you are that's honorable and beautiful, and you can know the next stage ahead of you.
So it sounds like you're saying that in some ways we might move fluidly in and out of stages in any given period of time, and also though that they have to go circular.
Sure.
So is that correct? Like we can pop in and out of 1, 2, 3, 4 at any given moment? And is it saying that if it's that, is it also circular that like if I'm in 3, the next stage has to be harmony? Or if I'm in simplicity, I can't jump complexity to perplexity? Like,
Sure.
Can it work like that?
Sure. I'm sure you probably could jump because I think it is fluid. I think it's a big circle. And like I just said, I think you can identify the different aspects in yourself. And even in my brain, I separate it into like, there's certain things in my life where I'm stage 1. There are certain things in my life where I'm stage 2, and there are certain things in my life I'm stage 3. All that being said, I still think that you are most dominantly in one of them. Because the stages of faith that we're talking about now were originally like developmental psychologists were talking about stuff for adolescents, for kids as they grow up. And so it's like from age 0 to age 20 something. It's like we can map these. And what they've done is they've taken those and just re-identified them into faith. And so in the same way, when you're 15, you can be in multiple stages. You're kind of still 15.
Yeah.
And so I think you kind of have to be okay with the both and, which both and thinking is harmony, is a stage 4 thinking. Either or is stage 1. So I'm either in one bucket or the other and nowhere else. That's still stage 1. And this is where it gets really interesting for me. This may not be what the question was leading to, but the question or the stages can often masquerade as others. And so you may think that you're really far along and you're actually not. And I can pick on perplexity again. People in perplexity are Rage Against the Machine, and they often have just as many black and white answers as those in simplicity. And so you may be in perplexity and have all these clear-cut what's right and what's wrong, and you think you're just moving on. You're in perplexity and you're better than everybody else because you're now thinking critically, and all those primitive, barbaric, backwards people are still back there. You're doing stage 1 again. Like that's stage 1 thinking. And so if you're not a part of a community because they believe these things, or they don't believe these things, or we're going to dip because of these things. It's like all this black and white thinking. You may think that you're so evolved, but you're honestly, you may not be. And they all masquerade as each other. Maybe you're in complexity and you have these options on the table and you think you're in harmony, which is seeing things in their wholeness. But really what you're doing is you just have all the options on the table and you're not doing anything about it. Harmony says, I have the options and I'm still going to do something. I'm still going to act. I'm still going to love. I'm still going to do X, Y, Z. So you may be in complexity and think you're actually in harmony. And so that's why I think it's fun. It's like you don't get a cookie just because you have new answers now. You're just on the other side, maybe playing the exact same game. It's the same stage of consciousness, So I think it is fluid. And in myself, I'm trying to identify the different aspects. But I do think you're in 1 or 2 of them. And you got to be honest and humble about it because you may think that you're further along than you.
Do you think though that, because I know last week you mentioned that we would start the cycle again. So do you think that some of that masquerading might actually be, it might be like, it's helpful for us to maybe consider, okay, I am in simplicity again, but I'm in, the second tier simplicity. Sure. So like the things that we are black and white on are maybe more higher impact things than we might have chosen to be black and white on previously in our previous round of simplicity. Because I can think for myself of like when I mean 20-year-old Emily was very black and white on some things, but the thing, and I do think I tend to be a more black and white person in general. I don't like the gray. And so, but I know that now what I hold more black and white would be very different things than I was holding black and white at 20 years old, 12 years ago. I was not holding, these things were not even on my list. Like they were, I wasn't even considering any of those things. So I think maybe, do you think, is that what you're saying too? And that like, even in our, if we come back around to perplexity, maybe the things we're doubting now might be different. So in ways we are further along than we were the last time we went through perplexity, hopefully. Could that be a marker for us of maturity?
For sure.
Because I think that's what I hear a lot in this is like, it is a way to mark maturity. And the benefit of that is being able to see that like, I am here asking questions again, but my questions are different than the last time I was asking questions. I am here wanting answers again, but the answers I'm seeking are very different than the last time I was seeking answers. I am here trying to do something with it, and what I'm choosing to do is very different than what I was choosing to do last time.
Yeah, it's the emphasis is less on the specifics of what you're working through, the specifics of even simplicity, and more it's in the manner of how you're carrying it. Because you can be loving, joyful, patient, peaceful, kind, gentle, self-controlled in simplicity. Like you can be someone who has conviction about stuff and not be a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, is that possible? I don't know. That's my stage 3. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think it's possible. And so it's all your ways around.
And that'd be a good marker of maturity is like, I can have black and white and I can also be loving and kind and understanding.
That's right.
Whereas maybe someone in less down the road might not be able to hold space for that.
Yeah, that's right. And it's easy for me at least to identify people in my life that were like that. There's people in my life, like a Chris Egger, who held conviction, but he was so gentle. Oh man, what a man. And so he was like, I don't know where he was in the stages, but he didn't share a lot. That's right. He'd give you some bourbon and then he'd ask questions.
On this line, if we're looking at the stages of faith as a practicality for us, we can kind of it can be used as almost a formation tool in that, okay, if I'm going to be in simplicity, which is not a problem, because again, it's not lesser or greater, but it is maybe where I am. What are those, go back through really quickly, those rumble strips of like, okay, but here are some of that, like the darker side, the shadow side of being in the stage, so that we can, I think that's where the formation piece comes in. It's like, okay, I need to know that I am going to be tempted in simplicity to maybe behave this way. And I need to choose this instead. So like, just real quick with each 4, what are those like rumble strips that we can be watchful for while we're in those?
That's good. Like in simplicity, you may have a clear-cut idea about something, XYZ, but maybe you don't know that there's other options on the table. Maybe you have this conviction and you're planting your flag in it, but you're completely unaware that there's 4 views on that. That's the stage 2 thing. So it's cool to have a flag in something. That's part of the reason our culture is the way it is, because we don't put flags anywhere. So it's like, put a flag somewhere, but know that there's 4 of them. There's 4 other views that are honestly honorable. And people have come to those conclusions thinking, well, that's a massive leap forward. Then also in complexity, it's like, okay, you have 4 views on something, but maybe you don't know the holes in the one that you're carrying. It's like, what if, the whole, in philosophy, you have straw man arguments. You're going to argue with someone and you basically do a rendition of their argument, but you make it so wimpy that's easy to beat up. That's called a straw man. Well, what's the honorable response? The honorable thing to do instead of that is called a still man. So I'm going to know your perspective so much better than yourself. Like I'm going to argue it better than you can. And I'm going to carry my bucket. This is the bucket I've chosen. And there's 4 holes in it. And I can tell you the 4. That's a very honorable stage 2 to stage 3. Stage 3 is there's holes in my bucket, man. But this is the bucket I've chosen. That's also hidden in the stage 4 is you got to pick up a damn bucket sometime. So I'm going to pick up a bucket. Doesn't mean you forget that there's 3 other buckets you can pick up. That doesn't mean you forget that you have to duct tape it some places. But it means you're going to pick it up and keep going. But sometime along the way that you picked up that bucket, you may forget why you picked it up. May forget that there's other buckets. You may have no reason to have picked up a bucket to begin with. You lack some of that stability, some of that conviction. Like there's war happening around the world. Well, does that mean you don't have a conviction on war? Like, because everybody, it's relative. Doesn't matter what side is. No, it's like you can say killing is wrong. You know, if you're in stage 4, fighting for peace, everybody's loving each other, we're doing something. But also stage 1 is come back around and saying, okay, war and killing is not okay.
Mhm.
That's a very black and white, simplistic thing to say. But is that necessary? Absolutely. So you can catch some of these rumble strips. It's like stage 1, I have ideas about stuff, convictions, but I don't know there's other options, thoughtful options.
Mhm.
Stage 2, it's like I have the options on the table, but I don't have any holes in the ones that I'm carrying because this is still the best one. Stage 2. Stage 3 is there's holes in my bucket. Maybe you don't have a bucket anymore. You have no convictions. Everything is relative. Then you got to get practical. Does war matter? Does killing people matter? Like, you try to get practical about the world. I think you can have opinions on stuff. Well, that gets into stage 4 is harmony. I'm actually going to do something.
Mhm.
What's the best way to solve the war in the Middle East? I don't know, but should we?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's stage 4. Do I have convictions about war? Absolutely. It's stage 1.
Mhm.
And that's some of those rumble strips. I think is great.
Yeah.
But it's like perspectivalism is dangerous. I don't know if that's a word, but I made it up in my notes. Perspectivalism. It's tribalism with my perspective. You know,
Mhm.
that's like the things you can guard against. And for Jesus, the point was fruit. So
Mhm.
if you're being a butt in stage 1, then that may not be what you need to do. Like, that's a
Yeah.
massive rumble strip
Yeah.
for me. It's like you can hold conviction, but you don't have to be judgmental about it. You
Yeah.
can hold perspectives, but you don't have to be whatever about it. You know, you can test the fruit of the spirit on yourself. I think is a good rumble strip.
Yeah, I like that, especially because when you're talking, I'm like, ooh, it's like passion. It's humility needed in the first 2, like majorly to know this is not. There are other options. I need that humility in the first stage, and I also need humility in the second one to know that like it's okay if mine, like it's okay for me to consider that my option that I've like really heavily dug down deep into might also still have holes. Like that's okay.
Yeah.
And then there's like passion needed on the second because it's like they're very forward, like you need to be moving. And so I think the fruit of the spirit is a really great thing to kind of check because that like self-control and
Yeah.
gentleness and all those things really come up and being able to see like, can I be here and still be that?
Yeah.
So is there danger? Oh, go ahead.
Can I make a-
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt, but you mentioned practicality going into that, and last week, like you mentioned, like sometimes when churches are in perplexity, that the pastoral care stuff kind of goes by the wayside. And I
Yeah.
think when I can remember entering into perplexity, especially as coming out of like stage 1 and stage 2, that not having an authority figure to go to or lean on or go, am I doing this right? Obviously, I had my foot in both stages, but that was really, really hard for me.
Yeah.
And I think like wherever you are in your community, it's always helpful. For me, it was like praying that someone would kind of like be a guide.
Yeah.
And the people that God brought didn't even know that I was like necessarily dealing with that they were loving enough and probably in their own stages of harmony where they could hear me and not condemn me or say you're confused, you're being a heretic or whatever. They could just be a spiritual guide without me feeling afraid or like I was doing something wrong. And I think sometimes at least in my own experience, when you enter into those stages 3 and 4, you feel so alone. You don't know who a spiritual guide can be. And so I think us recognizing as a community that people are in those stages and saying, hey, it's okay, like I'm here to listen no matter what you got is helpful because you feel really lost.
That's right.
So,
It's good. 'Cause-
Coming off that observation, should we as a body be trying to lead each other out of each stage? Like, is that our goal? Like, to be able to know, like, is the goal always forward motion? Or is there, is it something that we're like, this will naturally happen, so just be with me while I'm here? Or should we be actively as a community saying like, okay, Abby, I see you're in this perplexity stage. Let's help you get through to harmony. Or I see you're in harmony. Let's help you get back into simplicity. Is that what our role is as a community?
That's good.
I think you have to lead on the Holy
Great.
Spirit a lot.
That's
Like,
right.
and the people that I don't want to be like, get it or in where like
Yeah.
but the people that love well are loving out of the Holy Spirit, and they're not going to jump the gun and say, you got to move. They're just going to love you through it. And like a nurturing parent, honestly, and just, at least that's That's how I hope that I would be to someone who
Good.
is in the middle of a stage. Because if you force somebody, I just think that's going to break them even more.
You can't take people where they don't want to go.
Mhm.
You can't take people where they don't know to go. Well, that's what I'm trying to talk about. The stages of faith is like you can't take people where they don't want to go, and you can't take people where they don't know to go. That's very true. However, I may disagree with myself on this later. I don't know if I think the stages of faith probably can happen on their own, but I do think that we are at our best the more we're doing it as a community. So I'm not saying that you have to keep going every year you cycle through, because it may take some time. Like it may take some real time. And I have friends who I can identify on different, and maybe you shouldn't. Maybe it's like Enneagram. I shouldn't, label people. Stage 1. Or there are people that are in various stages, and I know that they're in those stages, and they're just in those stages. And like I said, I think there's a beauty to naming it and knowing it and just letting it be what it is. However, I think that Mosaic as a community, or just people at their best, like what happened, like when do you actually grow? It's not when you're isolated.
Mhm.
Like it's not when you're just doing life alone. So it's like, can we have the experiment of living life closely to each other, but also intentionally like asking each other enough questions where we kind of know where each other are on things, and you just have to live life enough to be able to know where each other are on things to ask each other stuff. There's probably lots of spaces in my heart that I'm in perplexity that I need someone from the table to slap me and get me out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that there's a wound that I'm just keeping open.
Mm-hmm.
And I
You're
need,
alone.
because I'm alone in it. I'm not voicing it or whatever. It's like I need that from people. And there's people that you don't need to, like if they're in perplexity, it's like I don't need to just shove the next stage on you. It's like, I'm just going to love you and leave you there in a sense, but I'm not going to let you do it alone.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. It's like you want to rate. This is the beauty of, I think, what Mosaic can be, is if we're cycling through the stages, then if I have Joe Schmo who's out here, who's working through the stages, I've been where he's been and I am where I am, and I know how to help where he's at. So if you're in stage 1, I kind of can identify some questions to ask you that can help you where you are, but also maybe just take the one tick forward. Like I'm not trying to solve it for you.
Right.
Like you're going to take the step if you want to take the step. But like if you're in stage 1 and you have some black and white answers, like what are some questions I can ask to help? Like next time we hang out, like if you want to go there, let's talk about it. I'm not saying you identify it and say like, we're going to move through the stages together.
Yes.
Like what if you're just a good friend and you start asking like, how'd you come to that conclusion? And is there other options on the table? Like what if you just started asking the kinds of questions that the following stage would? And this is where the beauty of stage 4 comes in. It's like, what's the whole point? What does Jesus say the whole point? How does Jesus say we're going to be identified? How does 1 John 4 say we're going to be identified as people of love? So for a Walt, who's in stage 1, necessarily in stage 1 for a while, he needs stage 1. So I'm going to give him stage 1 for a while. But how can I still give him stage 1 that's just tilted a little bit? Because that's where we get issues when you stay stuck. You're straight up. So I'm going to give him stage 1, but I'm going to tilt it a little bit so he keeps going.
So is there danger in us staying in a stage too long?
I think so. Because if you stay in stage 1 too long, you get narrow-minded, judgmental. Stay in stage 2. Stay in stage 2 too long. That was hard to say. There's a lot of things happening. You get overly pragmatic in the sense of what's the best option on the table. It's often overwhelming sometimes because you have all the things happening at the same time. Or you think that your mind is the only thing that matters in stage 2. And that's, we all know people like that. Or maybe we've been in stages like that. You stay in stage 3 too long, and I think the end result is cynicism and bitterness and isolation, honestly, because you're more evolved than everybody else. And so you're not going to participate with those people. And I think stage 4 is hard because you're going to be doing things with people, perhaps. But I think it lacks a underbelly of this ballast of why we're doing something. Like you can be getting your hands dirty, but if you're not doing it with people, this underbelly of this ballast, I think it lacks that engine. So,
yeah. So, does anyone else have any other questions before I ask our final one? So, what is what does this look like for? Because we talked a lot about what this looks like for us as individuals, but like, what does this look like for as the church, and specifically, like, how does this affect Mosaic? Because I know last week you said, like, I want this to be our language.
Yeah.
But what does that look like for us as a body?
I don't think we nail it all the time or will nail it all the time, because that's its own consciousness stage of thinking we got to win and get this right all the time. I do think that we can have a 4-stage mindset to how we do things and why we do things. So that being said, is like if we were trying to silo ourselves into a stage 1 church, which is probably necessary for people. Like, let's just start there. Stage 1 is necessary. And if there's stage 1 churches, we can't just beat them up all the time. Like, that's a good posture for Mosaic. It's not beat up on those guys. It's just hard for me. It's incredibly hard for me. That's beautiful. And there's also complexity churches kind of silo themselves into complexity. It's easy to beat up on them, but it's like they're incredibly helping people. They may be bigger. They have a massive auditorium, lots of people being drawn in. But you know what? Like, that is so beautiful and necessary for people. It's like, I just need to kind of sit and listen and then leave. Well, that's part of the issue with sitting around a table and looking at each other. It's very intimate here. And this has been a continual conversation from the beginning, is like part of how we sit may be a deterrent to people who are in different stages, because it's so intimate here. You know, you have to kind of face each other. Anyways, if you kind of silo yourself in as a stage 3 church, which is, I kind of hit it last week. There's a church I keep up with. I think they did a sermon series called The End of Gurus or something like that. The whole idea that we don't need to follow anybody. Like, you have your truth. That's like, that sounds great, but also like horrific. Like, I can't trust anybody that's come before me. Like, I got to stop reading Thomas Merton. You know, it's like, I never want to do that. Can't do that. Worship him too much. It's like, is that where we're supposed to go? Like, do we believe anything? And then stage 4, like I said, I don't think we have a lot of stage 4 churches or communities.
It's probably just like charities.
It's honestly places you don't hear of. It's people that aren't waving a flag somewhere and like, we're cool and we're evolved, you know, because they're just doing it. They're just living their life. And the beauty of a stage 4 is, because it keeps going, but stage 4 is like you're kind of incorporating and integrating it all to an extent. And so I kind of like to say we're attempting to be all stages. Because if you're coming to the room, you're going to sit around the table. It's like, if you're in the black and white stage, that's okay. Like, I am too in lots of ways. And we can say that to each other. If you're in stage 2, we're going to help you with stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. So the whole mindset is less of how do we pick one and build things around each one. It's more the mindset of keeping the 4 in the forefront all the time and trying not to swing a pendulum or get siloed off, which we have a tendency to, is to swing pendulums. Not just us, I'm saying humans in general. So we have a tendency to swing pendulums and silo each other off. And so for me personally, it's like, let's keep this in rotation for us, the ideas and questions, but also like as a check for each other. Like, if we're doing something as a community, if it is siloing or swinging, like, let's raise it up and be like, hang on a second, like, that may not be helpful. Or if we have people that are not feeling welcome at the table because they're in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, or stage 4. This is a quick story. There's a church I keep up with in South Bend, Indiana, and implicitly, sorry, I couldn't think of implicitly, not explicitly, implicitly, they're LGBTQ affirming. Okay. They don't post it on their website. That's just how they function. One of the pastors there went to the lead pastor early on in the stage of planting that church and was like, I'm wondering if everybody's welcome at our table. And the lead pastor was like, thinking he was going a different direction with it. And he's like, well, we're trying to make stances where everybody's included, LGBTQ is included, all these people are included. And he's like, no, I mean, like, what if you don't affirm LGBTQ? Are you welcome at the table? And he's like, I'm beginning to think we're not that way. And he's like, it's a massive check in his system of just like, okay, let's just not, like, is it possible to create a table where you can be both LGBTQ affirming and not LGBTQ affirming? Can you actually link arm in arm with someone following Jesus and disagree on theology? Well, that's the question, you know? And I think it's possible. There's some through lines. Yeah.
It's happening down the street, I think, because my coworker she's the music minister for Wesley right at the end of the street. And she has a traditional view, but she also has a gay daughter who's married and loves her. And like, she's just the most loving person ever. And the church, I think, as a whole is affirming. And she works for them on staff and is the traditional. So That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
I
cool.
was kind of mind blown. I
Yeah,
was
that's
like,
right. Yeah, that's
really?
right.
They let you work there? Like, you just kind of get this idea everyone's angry about it, but
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
I
Yeah,
have a good impression now.
Mm.
that's right. See, it's happening. Stage 4 stuff happens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know about it.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was really encouraging.
That's right.
Well, it's really good. I like that the idea of like the more we talk about it and it's on the forefront of our minds, it does breed a sense of understanding that, you know, we're all in different places and some of us want to move through those places and some of us might be in seasons where we don't. And just to like, the more we talk about it and that understand that, the more we can even understand each other and make space for things and make space for things in a different, healthier, more whole way than we would have previously. And so
That's right.
I love that and excited to see how this forms and shapes what we do here in our community.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Blake.
There you go. Cheers, everybody. I hope it's helpful. I think we can just let it be now and move on to other things. But we'll keep the conversation going as far as you want. So the good news is God loves you just as you are and not as you should be, because none of us is as we should be. So I think there's great hope in that. Is God waiting for you to move through the stages? I don't think so. Does God want you to keep growing? Probably. And there's somewhere in between that, you know, you can swing the pendulum. So let me pray and then we're done. God, we're here. We're yours. God, with all this stuff we've been talking about the last 2 weeks, I pray that we can just let some of it stick. And I pray some of it's helpful and helpful for myself. I can honor where I'm at, but also keep going. I can help others honor where they're at, but keep going. So God, I want the manner and the perspective, the life of Jesus to be adopted in our hearts. I want to follow. I want to invite others to the table. And along the way, I think we can figure things out. And I just want that to be our posture. So, God, we're here. As Mosaic, we want to gather on that question again, who we're supposed to be, who we're called to be, who can we be? And I pray that we're inspired to be certain kinds of people in the world, no matter what. I pray things you know. Amen. Everybody, Stages of Faith. Next week, I think we're just go straight into Jonah. So I'm excited about Jonah. We'll go Jonah chapter 1 next week. I think we're going to take 4 to 5 weeks of exploring this book. So talk about stages of faith, and then we'll go straight into Jonah. And we'll give you the stages of faith in the book of Jonah. All right, anybody anything you want to say? It's a good question. We should make one.
Personality.
We'll profit off of it. Yeah. Here's a $15 test. We'll make sure everybody takes, and we'll pocket the total.
That might be a good thing for you to put in our little thread of just like go back through and put in some of those indicators, like both good and bad in there, so that we can kind of let that be something that helps us to kind of identify that.
Yeah, it's not the only developmental framework either.
Yeah.
Like there's thousands of others that are really helpful. There's one named a guy named James Fowler from the 70s. He has another thing called The Stages of Faith. Did you pull it up?
Yeah, where can I find the one you were talking about?
So the main stuff I'm pulling from is from a guy named Brian McLaren. Faith After Doubt is I think he may have talked about it before. There's a book called, I think it's his book called Naked Spirituality. I think he talks about it first there. That was like 15 years ago. The best version is probably Faith After Doubt. Then he has an updated version called Do I Stay Christian? That book changed my life. But he talks about it there too. I should just walk through that book probably. But in like the 70s, there's a guy named James Fowler. He's a psychologist, or I think he's a psychologist. He's a professor somewhere at Emory, I think. And he talked about stages of faith. I think he has 6 stages, and they're really helpful. And you can loosely adopt them into ours. And so feel free to explore and I think it's all just a framework to help. So
There's a podcast too called Learning to See.
yes.
Type that in. It's Brian McLaren led. The first season, he goes through in detail each of the stages and talks about all of them. Sweet.
And have someone you can talk to when you listen. From one follower to another. Have somebody to hold on to.
Each of these stages, where they walk through.
Yeah, it'll short circuit that process real quick.
Yeah.
Because I've gone through all 3 of 4 probably.
Yeah, that's a good podcast. He's done a number of interviews too, Brian McLaren. So if you search Brian McLaren Stages of Faith, he's done some interviews. Learning how to see. Yep. Cheers, everybody. Cheers. Until next time. Yeah. Let's do it. We'll do that next week.
Gabe
That's stage
really
one.
knows that specifically answered. And was he actually? Was this the? Is this
Simplicity
literal?
Gabe, you knew that.
Is this
That's right,
literal,
that's right. He actually literally got eaten by
or is
fish.
this a
Stage one.
metaphor that life ate him
I
up?
cannot move on.
Yeah, stage one. Stage one.
Stuck, we have to go fast.
Stage one is he literally got eaten. How do I explain this? Stage two would be like, there's options on the table of interpreting this. Stage three is he definitely didn't get eaten. In this story's probably primitive.
It's all allegorical.
Yeah, everybody that thinks he got eaten, literally, it's
I actually
stupid.
think the Bible is real.
And stage four is probably I can take it.
Stage
Both
4
ways.
is messing with people. You know there are 2 fish, right?
And you're eating fish
Whoa,
and
hang on.
chips while you're-
Hang on a second. Oh,
Say there's a group name.
there is a group me.
Did you add me?
Yeah, there's a very fun group me.
Maybe you're doing summer school or you?
How do I add you? I don't even know.
I don't know. If there's like there's maybe a QR code or something.
You should be able
Add
to-
people. Here we go.
Business right now, I just declared. Make a decision.
In my address book.
Yeah.
What's your last name?
That's a really
Agan-
good
Agan.
one. You have no idea what you want to do.
You know?
All the time, I'm like, well, if I was going to go back, like, if I would have never.
I don't know
went to
why I
school,
can't
was like, I probably wish I
add
would've
you.
something
Here.
to do business.
Do you want to
I feel
enable
like
sharing
my
to
brain just also
sharing your
works that way,
profile?
but-
Yes.
And there's.
Can you scan this?
Let me get it.
Oh, yeah.
Share link.
It is wild that like
Yeah.
my brothers are
Scan QR code. I
Yeah,
found
yeah,
it.
do that.
I think you're very marketing and you guys don't have the same mind, but
Oh,
it all
gosh,
falls
no.
under business.
Yeah, although I did really enjoy my economics.
Add
class, so-
contact.
Good for you.
I had
Okay.
a really
now-
good teacher. I think that's why. I
No
enjoyed it
groups in
so
common.
much.
Here, I'll just.
I think I just added you as a person.
Okay.
Well, I've always
Or,
emailed
I guess,
different
individually.
colors,
Okay,
but
so now you.
Oh, here
I
we
never
go.
really
Here we
wanted
go. This is
something
mosaic.
tailored,
Oh.
and so
There
I'm
we
like, oh,
go.
I can't wear it, but
Sorry,
I
I'm
found that
not
this
tech savvy
shade
at
of
all.
yellow, like that golden, it has the golden yellow. It's mustard, it's awful. And anything
mustard because it's darker.
yeah, anything brighter than this, like a pale, like a pastel yellow.
That work?
Oh, yes.
That
Yeah, I
work?
guess so.
You'll get cool stuff, and then every now and then you get a random video that's on a.
Yeah, my good friend,
Thursday.
she has very olive
That's
tinted,
jumping a
she
trash
does a lot
can.
of pastel yellow really well.
Here goes.
Mine-
Here
I have
goes.
too much red in my skin.
What in the
so
world?
Cade,
it's pastel.
Kevin,
What in the world?
Andrew, and me, and then Walt.
Oh, his little.
He tried. He
That was
tried.
cute. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I said, "You guys can watch."